Staff is ready? Yes? Okay. Seeing the quorum present, I hereby call this meeting of the Strategic Housing Finance Corporation in Charles County, Texas to order. I didn't want to call to order and roll call. Information of the
President Julio Gonzalez Altamirano,
present.
Vice President Lisa Reed, Director Nasa Echerenwa, Director Keisha Prince, Director Wilmer Robert,
Here,
Director Jan Wynn, present.
we have a quorum.
We will now move to public forum citizen communication. Is there anybody signed up to speak?
Yes, there is. First up, we have Maria Arvid.
Is Maria physically
Maria?
present or?
Oh, sorry, she's Paul.
Okay.
Maria, would you like to speak now? I think she's connecting.
We just remind when she has 3 minutes once she starts.
Maria, can you hear us? Maria,
Let's go back to her. Is there
Okay.
anybody else signed up to speak?
sure. We have Gabby Garcia.
Okay, it's Garcia.
Does it matter?
Yes, please.
Good morning, my name is Gabby Garcia. I'm an organizer with FOSTA, and I've been working with the neighbors at Rosemont Tenants Association since summer of 2021. It goes without saying that Rosemont tenants are incredibly disappointed that Foundation Communities backed out of the sale. It renews their uncertainty about their future and whether or not they'll be able to continue to have a place to call home. For me, one of the most heartbreaking aspects was that very few people were surprised. For them, it's just another example of all the times they've been promised change, only for these promises to fall flat. Since receiving the news, we've had several meetings and conversations with the community, and one thing is clear. Tenants are resolved to continue to fight to ensure that Rosemont is sold to good owners. Even though they are exhausted, they will not stand idly by and let others decide what's best for them. They fought hard for a seat at the table and need this board to continue to work with them to find the best solution. They ask the board to once again ensure that their demands for long-term affordability, proper repairs, tenants' rights and protections, including the right to return, the right to other stipulations, which were outlined in their campaign to save Rosemont, are used as the basis to choose a new buyer. Tenants must be consulted before any final decisions are made. This Sunday, we had a general meeting and discussed what we knew about Capital A's new proposal. The tenants are open to exploring this option, but want to make sure that they're taken care of, and there's concern that this project will not be done in a way that is quick enough to improve conditions that tenants are currently living in. Families are stuck in unhealthy homes dealing with capstone management, who continually fails to perform the most basic functions of their job. Many of the things that scare Foundation communities away were the responsibility of capstone. But instead of making sure that they have accurate rent rolls or that repairs are being dealt with, capstone staff is being allowed to bully and harass tenants in the office and at their homes. We've asked Patrick Howard at these meetings to hold them accountable, but it's not being done. As always, tenants invite this board to meet and talk with them. And for those of you who have not already been there, to see the conditions which frighten Foundation community away, because clearly seeing is not the same as hearing. We need to remember that tenants are still living in these terrible conditions, and any solution must prioritize them. The permanent relocation is needed, which it might be. We need to ensure that tenants are adequately compensated. Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else signed up to speak?
Sadie Ford.
She is not here yet.
Okay.
Sade.
Sade.
Is Shirley on the line?
She's running late. I don't know if she'll finish.
Connor Kenny.
Should I wait till the Rosemont item?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr.
Maria, can you hear us?
It's frustrating. She's like right there. Anybody on the audience know how to message her?
I'm messaging her
Okay.
right She says she can't hear you all.
I'm on the Zoom. Here.
That's Ms. Freeman. We can't be heard on.
Can you hear us now? Can we be heard?
Testing the microphone. Can we be heard?
On the Zoom, at least I am hearing you on the Zoom. This is Shoshana. Is there a call-in number for it? Maybe Maria could call in.
Sure, I will. Should I put it in the chat? Can you share it with her that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, this is Leslie. Do you have her on your log? Is she logged into the application?
She's trying to connect again now.
Okay, we have you one more minute. Or that's it?
Okay.
Is she? are
She's
you-
not responding.
Okay. Does she message us at all or something?
She is not. Correct. No response.
Okay, is there anybody else on this list?
There's not, except for Sade, who I do not believe is here yet.
Okay. For objection, we're going to move on from citizen communication to the consent agenda. I move approval of the minutes for December 1st, 2022 regular meeting. Can I please get a second? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Committee report. Is hopefully some of you received an email update for both the recent work and planned work of the real estate committee as well as the current status of the implement weather policy and communication policy. I don't know if the Human Resources Committee wants to provide a brief update on this item of work of people.
We can do a brief update.
Okay, great.
Judy, February 20th, that was, our colleague, and we started by reviewing the current, evaluation form that's been used historically for the review of the executive director. I had some discussion about that and move forward to review the HUD recommendations and a manual for HUD authority board members over the year of staff, and then through some of the served author in that manual. I also talked about the benchmarks and goals for strategic and for staff performance that are set out in strategic plan. And those match very closely to people considered when we first run the method for all the members for discussion and consideration. And so that's what our preliminary review consisted of. There was an item. There was an item included in the HUD, which talked about paying attention to and evaluating the use of data, surveys, polling of strategic partners in the community, and the use of after the updated information system and the board decisions accurate as well. Which we see crossing across all the board of missions of both people coming from the citizens and incorporated that way. So that's our preliminary, very preliminary work, and we'll report back as we get some recommendations as well. Are there any questions or suggestions?
How does this affect, since strategic has no jurisdiction of the evaluations other than just to evaluate the executive director, how does that dictate to what the housing authority has control of the contract?
It's a legal question about, we can check it before.
I'm asking you, how do you think that fit in?
Well, I'm looking at the pattern from last fall, and we also, and we're asked by the chair of Housing Authority of Travis County, Cheryl Brown, to use the evaluation form that was issued to each of those central participated at that time. We can't hear you back here. No. The question was, how do the two bodies interact between the Housing Authority of Travis County and the Strategic Housing Finance Corporation in terms of evaluation of ED or?
No, that wasn't the question.
Okay, could you repeat your question?
The question was, how does what you're here planning and proposing, since the housing authority controls the contract, how does it, what you're proposing, relate to that? I think since the housing authority controls the contract, and Mr. Howard only works 30% for the strategic board, and it's part of his contract, and how does that affect what you're doing? I think the housing authority ought to be the driver.
So again, we've been asked in the past to participate in that evaluation process, and so we're preparing as best we can to participate in that again this year.
There'll be an answer, but we can move on.
My sense is that two possible futures are possible. One is where we continue to provide feedback that is appropriate by HFC. One where the interlocal agreement ends. One where SHFC changes. In all those situations, we have to manage our own performance as an organization, regardless of the state of interlocal agreement. And so this is complementary with all those potential futures. We need to have our own evaluation process for our organization, for our executive. I think there is some conversation with HFC about how similar to last year, our information is incorporated. But as you said, the interlocal agreement has certain implications. The interlocal agreement is simply that, an agreement. Whether the boards who has resources at any moment, who sits on the board, so it's integrated. And what is our dynamic is there's a performance.
Can you speak a little bit louder? We can hear you.
I'll try my best.
Thank you.
Any feedback to that? Okay, so let's move on to our next item, which is draft key performance indicators. There is a post on our message board which points out some of the initial draft key performance indicators. This is part of the work plan that has been previewed to this body previously. We are not going to have a deep discussion about it today. The key performance indicators that we select will impact, hopefully, our post-Rosemont return to being a strategic housing finance corporation focused on financing housing, or revamp of our evaluation process, how we report. And so this will shower down to different pieces of how we operate. Not intending to have a broad discussion on it today, but they want to preview it to other board members, the public, and staff, as it will likely have significant ramifications for our facility. Any clarifying questions or feedback on that before we move on?
I'd just like to point out to those who are studying for the first time that the 4 dimensions that are outlined there line up with the strategic plan that have been posted and published by HACC and include SHFC as a subcategory within it, so it's a pretty close match. In the back row here.
Okay, seeing no questions, we will now move to item 6, Executive Vice President reports. And so, directors, if you have any questions about items E, C, D, and E that were not answered in the board reports, or that you feel are timely for this body, well, this would be the moment to ask any questions about E, C, D, and E. Seeing no questions, I ask that we move to item A, where we will discuss the Rosemont update on our sale. Mr. Howard?
Sure. So, as you all know, we received word that Foundations Communities was not going to be able to continue pursuit of the disposition of sale acquisition of Rosemont. And I've been asked to consider with the other respondents how we might potentially be able to move forward. So I reached out to the 3 remaining respondents, that being Capital A Housing, Hayden Glade, and Mission Development Corporation, to get their sense of their interest and to affirm basically their bid, their proposal. And what we have is a summary before you of those. We've actually gotten a subsequent proposal as well that's you'll see here. So we're going to try to blow this up as large as we can. I should make copies, but Melanie, is there a way to?
Is this on board?
It is. Oh no, this is not on board. So what we're going to do is we'll make it very large and then we'll.
If all of someone could maybe email it to a few of the directors who might.
Sure, we can do that. Give us just 1 second. We'll do that right now.
Thank you. Now, if you want to read the.
So I'm gonna just keep talking in the interest of time. So. You can get the email. Oh, you did it already?
I sent it.
Okay, oh, okay. Okay, so the first thing we did is we essentially went through the elements of the the tool that was used to, evaluate this respondents, we sort of summarize those or sort of collapse those to understand if they were still consistent. Their plan was still what they said it was initially. So essentially, everyone agreed that they were still going to address the issue related to mold, the inspection of mold, the amelioration of mold that found. That was still consistent with all parties. Similar to the issue related to tenant relocation and those things associated with that. The commitment to permanent affordability now, I will tell you, it varies according to plan. Some of those are contingent on some funding, as you all know. So their answer of yes is you have to qualify that as it relates to the commitment to permanent affordability, but understand what they submitted previously. They're suggesting that they're still affirming that commitment. And then the commitment to tenant rights and support services, similarly, they're committing to what they have previously submitted. Additionally, so as you can see there you see 4, I said there were 3. So what has happened is Mission Development Group is affirming their original proposal. Hayden Glade has elected to partner. No, that's wrong. There's only 3 names, but not 4. We should remember that Hayden Glade, the last one. They said that they were going to submit their revamping their original appointment.
Right,
Oh, no, never mind, sorry. My fault.
yes, yeah.
She's looking at me like I have 3 heads because I said that wrong. So there is a proposal that has a joint proposal with Hayden Glade. Involves Hayden Glade and Capital A. And there are 2 of those, and then there's an individual proposal from Hayden Glade, which is the subsequent proposal that was submitted after the submission date, and you'll see that in the next slide. Okay. So the next items have to do with the price, due diligence, closing period, and rent restrictions, the financial wherewithal, and just a brief description of what was being committed. Mission has affirmed that they're still interested. However, they have reduced their offering price to $36 million, and they're suggesting what they're calling is a $2 million holdback, which I can explain in detail, but essentially the asking price they're offering is reduced from 40 million to 36. They believe that they need 90 days for due diligence and 60 days to close. They are affirming that they will meet the tenets of the law related to the rent restrictions. And their financing is still in place. And again, they will meet the tenets of the law. Okay. So this proposal is one that's a blend of both Hayden Glade and Capital A, the next proposal. So what you're seeing there is and this is new. So this is an offering of $36,250,000 with 30 days for due diligence and 30 days to close. With the notion that, we will have 60% of the units for 99 years at 60 AMI. As you can see there, and then you talk about, as identified in the previous plan, that the escalation of rents would be over 3%. Essentially, they do have a financial wherewithal. I mean, in short, it talks about sort of how they plan on approaching that in terms of the funds available. But essentially, in summary, the funds are there in order to meet the obligation. Now, as it relates to the description, the qualifier here is, and I do have both Hayden Glade on the line and Connor Katie with Capital A here to speak to a little bit of detail about their proposal. But they essentially are saying there's permanent affordability that would be in place at 60% AMI, however, with the possibility of creating a PFC structure that would involve the Facilities Corporation, obviously subject to its appropriate approvals from the Facilities Corporation and the city, the Housing Authority. There is the ability to do the substantial renovation and then to do the income tiering and to ensure the long-term affordability. So I'm just gonna go to the next, and then if you want to ask the questions, they'll here to clarify. Because I'm sure there are some. Okay, so this is the other proposal that involves both paid and delayed and capital A. Essentially, we're looking at 36,750,000 in that case. Same due diligence period and closing. They're saying that 99 years of affordability, which is intended in the other proposal, obviously subject to some qualifiers, which again, I explained. And then they're just essentially talking about their financial wherewithal, but essentially they have the equity to do such currently. So they go into explanation about how that might be achieved in terms of the affordability. And what we're saying here is that the units would be at 60% AMI. And then they talk a little bit about some of the plans for tenant relocation and the like. So the biggest difference between the two proposals, I would say in terms of what you're looking at is one involves the Facilities Corporation structure that may potentially lend itself to additional income tiering, but also obviously the redevelopment, obviously if you're considering the likes of building units at 80% AMI, up to 80%, and then the balance of those being market. And in this case, we're talking about all the units remaining at 60% AMI through the duration of the affordability period of the 99 years for all intents and purposes. And then that component, all that component of the supportive services would be administered via capital A in this scenario. Okay, and the next. Okay, so we got a subsequent offer after we actually scored after you all selected foundation in the original RFP period. They offered 44 million, and I'm just going to briefly summarize. So the difference in that case was that there was no there's an assumption that they would be pursuing tax credit reservation in order to ensure the affordability for 99 years. So obviously all of this is contingent on a reservation. And in that case, there would be some income tiering if you go to the description where there would be rents at 50 and 60% AMI versus just the 60 in the previous. Again, this one is subject to receiving a reservation of tax credits to ensure one, the affordability for 99 years and for the income tiering. So I'm actually going to stop there and see how you want to proceed with the folks online or here or just further discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, for prepping up all this work. I just want to confirm that the paid late offer that we received is Mr. White is still willing to honor it.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
This is the first time that we have had a chance to talk about, open meetings that compliant way of what happened when foundation committee decided not to proceed. So I would really like to hear from each individual board member, both their sense of kind of what transpired and of these proposals, which one is appealing to them. So we are able to have the second part of this discussion moving towards a solution and a better future for those months. Why don't we start over here with suspense?
Observation to doing the regular walk and residents want to be bought by a nonprofit. Residents do not want a tier thing where you have low income and then you have market rate that split company that they don't. And I don't see anything out there that fits what the residents. So I feel like that our people messed up and we get some of these for some other people that might be suitable for what the residents. That's awesome. Do we have any money for it? You have anybody in mind? I don't know. Maybe not like to partner with somebody that can partner together or something like that. Somebody that has the ability to have relocate them to the places they're at. They're not gonna do it if they gonna relocation. So somebody that can really handle that, you know, have the experience and stuff like that. But I don't think any of those being a good fit for what residents, and residents have to live there. They've been living through that. We owe it to them to make them whole in some way, but we failed miserably. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Director Wayne.
Again, appreciate you pulling all the bidders and getting us back into deliberation, because we're really, one of the things that is important to me is that we move forward in a timely way. So that's something I just want to emphasize as I look at these details, and thank you for lining them all up as we go, from the second capital A fiscal year grade one. The far right column requires a PFC deal with the Travis County Facilities Corporation. So I think that's something that we need to be spoken to by the body, so that we can understand the viability of that proposal. That would be important information. So I just want to underline that. I do sit on that board, but the president and vice president here, and I'm sure they haven't, I don't know if they've said they've always said that. So that I would like to emphasize the importance of that communication and discussion. I don't have an outright objection to that. I'm just saying it's something that's hard to envision right now when it's so early in the process. Moving on to the next proposal. Just want to be sure I'm reading this correctly. This could just be a typo, but the offer being first funds for security moving furniture suppliers tenants who wish to remain at Oak Valley.
Rosemont at Oak Valley.
Oh,
You just-
thank you.
Rosemont, Oak Valley. You have all kinds of nicknames.
I get the package. Okay. I think maybe I'll pull some questions on that with your Connor president and for his presentation. I have a couple questions about that. Those are the two that I'm leaning towards at this time.
Mr. Roberts.
I want to talk about the proposals that are there. I would just remind you all that we have a fiduciary responsibility, as I pointed out, and with Travis County being 1.3 to 1.5 million people, and approximately 200 people are affected by this. That's 0.0002% of the population of Travis County being affected. So we have to think about the entire Travis County. And we keep talking about, we pushed this thing, and it's been since September of this last year. And each day it costs us money. And I would think that you would want to move on this expeditiously as possible. And each of these individuals, all are adhere to what you want to do. But, it's just a matter of, thinking about the entire Travis County and not necessarily 0.0002%. That's all I have.
Are there any other proposals that you find more favorable or less favorable?
Well, the first one would be the 44 million, that would be, the most logical, but I could accept almost, any one of those two. I would scratch mission at this point, and, but I would think that, the second, capital A would probably be the most considered.
Ms. Reeves?
So I'm looking at these options. Honestly, like, I'm almost happy that Hayden Gray is actually trying to put things in from the tenant's point of view. Because we're looking at this and the tenants don't get to see this. So they don't know who's gonna be able to be over them right now. So they have a fear we're dealing with right now of who the new owner is gonna be. The tenants, they feel beaten, like they feel like it's a lot of people putting them under pressure. So like, is it a way that we could narrow this down and get their point of view real fast? Or, because I mean, I know we need the money to get out of debt, but we also need to make sure that this happens the way they say it's gonna happen. The first proposal was nowhere near any of this. Now we get it, what we want, depending on what, like, okay, so they're gonna help the people, but why not let the people know what they're gonna do? That way, we're not hiding anything, we're letting them know what we're choosing and what we're gonna go with, but we're also showing them what changed, what came about, so that they'll be able to go, oh, okay, maybe it'll hit some buttons there, maybe they'll understand. But if I have choice, I mean, we don't have any other offers, these are the only three.
So essentially, we didn't open up the solicitation, those are the three remaining of the four that applied. And so I was asked to affirm with them if they're still interested, and then we got affirmation that they were, and then we got a couple hybrid offers with the same folks that we were working with already.
Are you done, Ms. Reeves?
Oh, I was gonna ask another question.
I just wanted to explain that, under county policy, whenever there's a bid and one falls through, you go to the next bid.
The next highest bidder or the
Next,
next best?
well, they usually would go with the next best bid, so that's what, so that gives you some clarity as to what, that's the way the county operates, and that's the way our procedures operate. Am I right?
Our solicitation is very unique, but I think that that is the spirit of how we solicit. Yes.
Lloyd?
You're not legally required to do that, but if that was the spirit of the RFP and kind of what you put in there, and that's the way the board wants to go, that seems logical to me to expedite this process.
Ms. Reeves, you said you had a second question. Is it still?
Yes, it is. The only other question I have is. Okay, back to Ms. Prince. So you were saying something about HACA. Has this even been brought up to HACA? Is there somebody they can partner with that you are already aware of that could do that within the zone? Because I would go with trying to get maybe the city and HACA together, but we don't have time. Well, that's why I'm like, if we have those options, then we could do them and do them. If not, then we gotta make the best decision. Do we have to make the best decision from this list now?
That's the board's decision as far as
We
that's.
do not, but the world does not stop if we don't make the decision. And so, as you know, we have a variety of issues. From the point of view of the tenants want to know what's gonna happen. They want repairs. Many of them obviously have strong feelings about existing property management. That world does not change if we respond. We, as the current landlords, and owners, have a set of financial obligations. We have to cover losses. There is someone that has, we have a mortgage for Latin, that's a bit. The mortgage lender has certain rights. And if they feel that we are not doing what we need to be doing, they have significant rights and we could. It's a small probability, but I'm gonna be open about it. We could get in real trouble. And then I think finally, in terms of just this board and the community, if we don't take action or if we do not provide effective governance, the commissioners for the broader community might have an issue. So technically, we are the current owners. We can remain the current owners. We have some tools to potentially stay the current owners. But I think we have had a long discussion that got to the place of SHFC itself should not be in this business, should not be in this operation. So then the question is, if we don't select from this list, is there an entity out there that could be better? And so one that is proposed is HACA and some other partnership. And for those of you that don't know, HACA is the Austin City Housing Authority. Another partner, it's unclear. And so there might be others. The question about from this list ultimately depends on, do we as a board feel confident that if we go through the process we had in the winter, we're gonna have better bids? And remember, the world has not stopped. Everybody could read the foundation communities decided not to proceed.
And cost is continuing to go up.
As we said, while we hold the property, we continue to incur costs and we continue to not, we do not have the pockets to fix everything immediately because the way we would want. Competence issues aside, and so we have this dilemma. And so in terms of taking action, I don't think this is necessarily a complete list. But personally, I think this is pretty close to the list. And stepping back, since I didn't provide my feedback first, I think that while there might not be consensus on this, I personally feel that the difficult work that we did in winter that has gotten us to a place where we are ready to pivot in a week. That is a very good place to be. Moreover, we're not having fights about what matters. We want to balance our financial position, permanent affordability, quick repair, et cetera, all of the hard work we did. So we have a very good understanding of who's out there in the market, what we want to accomplish, what the board is currently constituted cares about. And so after what I would say is a profoundly disappointing action by the organization that we selected to help deliver a better future for Rosemont, a credentialed, respected, resource connected organization that we put our faith into and decided that they could not proceed. The fact that we did the work, had all the drama, we put in the time, allows us to in a week be, hey, we've got some good options. And if we don't like these, we know what we would need to go and do to find a better option. Right. So when I hear HACA, I'm like, yep, I see where that fits in. I see why that's a reasonable entity, because we've already done the hard work. So the question, I think, for folks that are hesitant with this list is, do we think it's going to be better? Is the market, are the folks going to be out there that want to help us in this journey, particularly now that there's new information? The foundation communities, not a fly-by-night outfit, right? One of the premier housing organizations in this state that said they don't want to vote. So that is, and very publicly so, right? Stories in the paper publicly so. So the notion that the market is necessarily gonna be better, probably not, that other partners will be excited. It really depends on what we're offering. So I would say that me personally, like, I think the balance of the board, I would be interested in seeing the potential partnership between Capital A and Hayden Blade address the following items that have been raised by Ms. Prince and by Ms. Reeves. The tiering. And then kind of how we feel about the tiering. Whether the entity that owns it and controls it will be nonprofit, mission oriented. And I hope, Mr. Kenny, you're taking notes. And number 3, how do we know that if we sell to this entity, the promises that are being made to Mrs. Reeves, and as she's observing being made, will happen. And the legal, jargon we need way is like, how do we know we have negotiated restrictive covenants with the tenants association and give them the power to make sure that if we all go away, they will still have those promises kept. If it's okay with the board, I would like to kind of, since the balance does seem to be with, well, let's hear a little bit more about Capital A and Hayden Blade, and if they can address the issue raised by Ms. Prince and convince Ms. Reeves that promises will be kept, as well as address Ms. Whiting's issues about what does the TCFC involvement look like? What are the options? I think we've got the right people in the room to answer these very technical questions. My sense is for values-based, permanent affordability, tenants' rights, relationship reasons, we are not as interested in the solo mission or the solo Hayden Blade proposals. And maybe want to see if we could make a partnership between Capital A and Hayden Blade work. Any feedback to what I just said? Before we ask Mr. Kingy to do that.
What your summary reflects well, we're on that's fine.
My summary reflects.
She just said something, I don't know what she said.
So just before our chair turned it to us to comment, he made a summary. I'm just saying that reflects accurately where I said right now.
All right. So any further comments? Mr. Kenny, if you could tell us a little bit about the proposal, the partnership, and address some of the issues raised in conversation today. And then when we are done talking to Mr. Kenny and potentially Mr. White on the phone, Mr. Howard, we will need to talk about next steps in terms of moving forward, given the potential guidance from the board. Mr. Kenny on the phone, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Chair. Board,
Do you want to see if someone's on the line?
Mr. White, are you on this?
Make sure that you're on.
Did you check if he's on there in case anybody has a question?
I'm here. So the 2 offers that we have up there are really just one. Had a couple of days to put this together, so not entirely as organized as or well articulated as I would hope, but essentially we were able to basically offer the same price, 36.25 million in cash. We have that on hand in cash. There are no financial contingencies. We don't have to go out and raise the money, apply for grants, sell a lease, anything like that. Part of this change speaks to the time that's elapsed since the original RFP, and time we've lost time. And what I'm reading from the board and the tenants is that we don't have the luxury of time to hold things open for 6 months while we go out and raise additional funds and place a contingency on will the state award us, a LIHTC award. So we reconfigured our bid, and one of the things is that in order to provide the certainty to be able to make the offer now and to close pretty quickly, we were not able to keep NHP, the nonprofit, in the offer, and had some interesting conversations with Hayden Blade and thought that we could come together, and they are offering to financially back, our offer, and, the, the real kind of contingency or difference is that, we are able now to finance the purchase. We have a pretty healthy $8.5 million renovation budget, penciled in there. We have confidence in the contractors and individuals involved in the renovation plan. So the short term is very solid, and as well, we have estimated an initial tenant relocation package of about 1.8 million. That is something that we committed to up front. But we'd like to have some more discussion with tenants about configuring that to be kind of exactly what they're looking for and how many of them are looking to that. The real question is kind of a longer term future of Rosemont, and right now Rosemont is not, it's off the tax base, right? That will pay taxes, and it is difficult for us to make a commitment that we're going to be able to maintain permanent affordability with the units in a condition that we can all be proud of, and put it back on there and start paying taxes again. And to say that we can, we do think we can do a good job of running it, to say that we can fully renovate it and maintain it and pay more in taxes, I start to get uncomfortable with that now. So that is why we have suggested that a PFC deal, which would take away that tax burden, is what we think would really allow us to maintain things in good order. It doesn't necessarily need to be Travis County FC. It could be HACA. They have PFCs. Could be a deal with AHFC. I have a lot of faith in our community that folks are going to step up and make this happen. We would like to see some progress, real interest, and initial commitment from one of these PFC entities before we make that commitment to 99 years of affordability. I think that's just the responsible thing to do, but I have a lot of commitment that we can get that done pretty quickly. Speaking to the questions that you outlined, in terms of the tiering, I want to be clear that the PFC structure and our vision for it remains what we submitted initially, which is the redevelopment of Rosemont in a phased manner over the next 10 or 15 years, adding a bunch of housing and new buildings. There will always be at least 280 units of income restricted housing at 60% MFI or less. What we are talking about is adding more units that are some higher and some lower on the MFI. That would need to be a deal that we need to work out really with the city of Austin, because we would need to change the zoning there. And that will be a negotiation. And we can say, look, we can offer this much, we can offer this many 30%, 40%, 50% MFI units. One of the fundamental things I want to express is that if you have a 100% income restricted project, an investor, a development company, they're only making money by saving, by cost savings, by reducing costs. That can often result in delayed maintenance, not maintaining amenities the way they need to. Because it's below market rate, you'll always be able to lease those units out as long as they're in decent condition, and your profit incentive drives you to cut costs. One of the ways that I like adding market rate housing is that it changes that incentive structure to say, hey, if we want to attract tenants to those market rate units, we're going to pay good rents. We need to maintain this place really well. We now have a financial incentive to actually spend more and maintain amenities and have this be a really pleasant place. That incentive really just kind of doesn't exist as a profit incentive for 100% affordable development. So we think that aligns the interests of the tenants, the investors, and the operators pretty well. So just to be clear, there will be no reduction in the number of affordable units on site. We would just be adding market rate units as well as additional deeper affordable units. In terms of not having a nonprofit, I totally understand it. My career comes from nonprofit and government. This is a relatively new term for us. I'm also of the kind of trust but verify approach. I don't want you to have to trust promises that I'm going to make. We want to put it into a contract. We want to have contractual obligations to the tenants for tenant relocation. And we face a challenge that once SHFC sells this property, SHFC is gone, right? No longer involved. So how do we maintain long-term commitments, especially about maintaining a place of good order? We think that a public entity sponsorship, which is what the PFC is, maybe solves all of our problems, because we would be looking to enter into a PFC deal that maintains that tax exemption, that has inspection requirements, that units be maintained in good order. And if we don't maintain the units in a livable fashion, in good condition, we lose those tax benefits, right? There should be a financial penalty associated with not running the place well. And that's what a PFC offers, instead of just a promise that I'm going to take care of those units over time. So I wish we still had a nonprofit in the deal where we go into redevelopment. We plan on bringing nonprofit back in, probably NHP. At this time, I don't want to make a promise. I want to sign a contract that makes those promises legally binding as financial penalties associated with not living up to those promises. And then finally, we have budgeted in our offer a full-time employee for at least the first year, just to independent of the property manager, to directly interface with the tenants, to oversee inspections. This is independent of the property management, it's independent of the renovation, it's kind of like an ombudsman that is a direct link between us at Capital A and the tenants, to try and basically just manage all that process better and provide a more direct line of communication to the construction, the property management, to the investors. I hope that explains kind of why our offer is a little bit different, and what we could bring in, and our ability to close pretty quickly. If you have any other questions.
Why don't we go one by one and this is our kind of shot at talking with the folks making the proposal. To raise your issues, make your requests. Ms. Ream, would you like to start?
So I understand you said you want to make it a contract, which sounds way better than promise. We're tired of broken promises. We don't want that at all. Back to my question. That sounds really good. Like that would be something that the residents, everybody would be pushing for. And is this contract, are there any loopholes we need to know about? Cause us making that decision to just choose this and not getting feedback from them, it's like we're putting all of our faith in you. And as you see along our way, putting faith in, it's not been a good relationship. So it's kind of standing back, waiting to see what happens, watching to see which one is the best. I'm kind of, so there's not two offers from y'all. It's not the 36, not 37, it's 36.
36.25. I'd like to take the next 30 days after authorization of debt negotiations. We need to do a bit more for this due diligence. We have a pretty high degree of confidence that we have a good beat on the repairs that are needed. There's a little bit of a deeper inspection work, some subterranean and plumbing, stuff like that. We want to verify some issues there. I'd also like to take that time to engage more deeply with the tenants as we negotiate with SHFC and find a relocation package that works for everybody. And as we close with SHFC, I would like to close on a contract with the tenants, their designee, and have a contractual relationship there that says this is the tenant relocation package. If we don't make good on this, you could sue us. And I'm sure PASA would be happy to sue us over that, and we welcome that level of commitment.
Okay, it's going to be brought to tenants first, or it's going to be brought to them after this has already been packaged?
So I have a set budget. It needs to be kind of parallel. And what I would like to do is that we work out kind of best offer that we can make that includes the tenant relocation package that we design in consultation with the tenants. We bring that formal final offer back to SHFC. That comes back before this board, and we all can evaluate whether it's good or not.
Mr. Roberts,
I personally like the two, that you're saying that is no good, that proposal out there is no good. Second one.
Can I weigh in? Right,
That was
Elliot.
That was Mr. White.
Okay, I personally like the 36,750. What happened to that bid?
Yep.
Explain.
I think Elliot's asking Mr. White.
Let's see if Mr. White has something to say, and then I'll.
Yeah, that's Mr. White talking, if you allow him to speak. Go ahead, Mike, you want me to talk?
Mr. White, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I will appreciate all of you having me in. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I had surgery about a week and a half ago and I'm unable to fly. Otherwise, I'd be there in person. Want to clarify the proposals because I hear Mr. Roberts' question. Hayden Glade submitted an initial proposal as part of the response to the RFP. We then submitted a second proposal after the fact at 44 million. I understand the board is not interested in that proposal, so we are back to our first proposal. We then also discussed a joint proposal with Capital A, and excited to support that proposal. And Connor was great to sort of fill people in the details. The second proposal, which I believe is currently being labeled Hayden Glade Capital A 2, is really just sort of how I would expand our first proposal. So if that makes sense, Hayden Glade Capital A2 is probably mislabeled, and that's fine. I can take responsibility for that. We were happy to execute that number. It's not contingent, so you all know, that's not contingent upon, we'd look at the PFC structure, but it's not contingent upon having that in place. We do 30 days diligence. We would close in 60 days. We'll honor all the tenant protection packages that Connor was talking about and caps on rent increases. And I would point that our first response to the RFP got the highest score, even scored above foundation. So we're certainly committed to fixing the issues at Oak Valley. We're committed to helping tenants relocate who want to relocate. We have the cash to close this project immediately and begin the renovations right away. For the tenants, I'm sorry that Foundation was not, for their reasons, able to move forward. They're a terrific organization. They would do an excellent job with the property. I understand that there are reasons for not moving forward, but the tenants are now stuck in a position where a process that was started in November is still not getting them closer to seeing any reconciliation. So I don't know how much that helps clarify those proposals. Very excited about working with Connor and the team at Capital A. They would be involved as our local general partner and development consultant. They will oversee the resident services program. They will have a staff dedicated to working with the residents. We are overstaffing the property to have people to work with the residents. So the distinction really is, I think it's just augmenting our first proposal, and it encompasses everything that we had discussed. We're still committed to 99 years of affordability after the fact. That'll always be at the property, and we're ready to move forward at any time. Certainly be happy to address any questions that the board has, and appreciate you all having me.
To finish up, and I'll be brief. I support the Capital A too. We've taken enough hits over the last couple of years on this thing. I don't personally think that the housing authority wants to take on anything either. So if there's a PFC involved in it, as long as this entity or others are not involved in it, that's fine with me. But it should not be part of the contract. But we would have to provide that. Again, I'll reiterate my point. It's costing us money each time we delay it, and we're talking about less than 0.0002% of the population. I appreciate and support your ability to help relocate and take care of the tenants that's there. But we have to consider the County as a whole. And that's what I am. And if I could support that way too.
Thank you for fleshing out the items. So, am I correct if I follow my colleague's interpretation of how they were taking the two, that does not include, the PhD would not be, everything, or it could be,
It could be, it doesn't have to.
that's okay.
I have some faith that we're gonna be able to have somebody step up.
Yeah. Is there any, I know you have an period of due diligence following the withdrawal of foundation fees, so this is so hypothetical, it's easy, I think, you'll forgive me the question. But is there any, conception you have that the property may be in such condition that relocation will be immediate and total, or is it a phased project as you first described it? And I know this is an unfair question, so if you just speak to your thought process.
So from visiting the property and talking to folks involved, not all the units are in the same condition. Every unit can use it as a little bit of work. So I don't think it's a total relocation. But that being said, we're not going to stop any tenants who want to take a relocation offer. That's open to everyone. Development takes time, especially in Austin. I don't see any reason to not have these available, affordable places to live. If we're able to do renovation, we fully expect to renovate most probably of the units initially. And what we need to do is really look at the condition of the units as they spread over the map and look at, okay, where does it make sense to start in terms of redeveloping? And we really have to be in every unit to kind of see what that means. No, we have a lot of faith that there's going to be a lot of units that folks will be, we hope to kind of show through our early performance that it's worth sticking around. That cash flow is good for the project's financial health.
I would like to talk a little bit to the residents who are on the board, specifically about mold and remediation and reconstruction. John Sager is a partner at Hayden Glade. He's a mold and remediation specialist. He spent the bulk of his career doing disaster recovery and knows more about mold than I think any one of us could ever hope to learn. Part of our construction, and Connor was talking about this, is in addition to the aesthetics that you can see in the units, whether that's drywall, countertops, flooring, those kinds of things. We've also budgeted for a complete replacement of the HVAC systems and the hot water systems. Oftentimes, even if you've renovated a unit, you can have mold or material that builds up in some of the HVAC equipment, and simply replacing filters or cleaning it doesn't work. So we've budgeted to replace all of the air handlers, all of the condensers outside, and all the hot water tanks. And we don't know that 100% of them will need to be replaced, but if we inherit that situation, we're capitalized to cover that. And addressing the life safety issues of mold and mildew at the property it's not only important to us, it's something we have direct experience doing.
Thank you. I was going to, either one of you can answer this. Do you have an example of where you've refurbished or renovated and been involved in a relocation that you think was well done that we could get to?
Well, we own a similar project built by the same developer in Austin that suffered massive storm damage during Winter Storm Uri. The project is called Oringo Hills, and almost identical water loss, very similar damage. We had 124 units that were damaged. I'm happy to provide the report of everything that was done. Residents were immediately impacted. Now, again, we're talking about a pretty fully occupied property that suffered a major catastrophic loss. So we didn't have a lot of vacant units at the ready to move people into. So a lot of these residents were moved into hotels or extended stay hotels nearby while we got their units ready. Others we were able to, they said, no, that's fine. We'd like to stay on site, and we moved them into a vacant unit. We hired a professional moving company to handle all the moving of their belongings. And others didn't suffer a ton of damage and just needed some drywall replaced, and we were able to do that in an afternoon. So it was certainly disruptive to the residents. It was disruptive to all of Central Texas to go through that storm. But as far as making accommodations available to residents, that's a relatively straightforward process. And given the sheer number of vacants at Oak Valley, we anticipate that the residents will have a choice of stay in your unit while we fix a few small things, relocate to a different unit on the property that's been fully renovated, or relocate offsite. And I think actually the vacancy sort of helps us with that optionality, oddly enough.
We're over our hour, which is okay with me, but I do want to keep things to an hour per board request. I was wondering if you have any more questions. Ms. Benson will be the last person to Mr. Penn.
Just real quick, are you opposed to a third party relocation?
No, we just need to make sure that we have some kind of certainty about the total cost of the relocation. We have to work that out, third-party inspection, third-party relocation. We have no objection to measures to make sure that we are going to make good on the promises.
Thank you.
Friends, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, so we have immediately budgeted $100,000 annual resident services budget. That could make sense to just have a single person devoted on the campus at all times. Probably a mixture of that and contracted services. We really need time to work with the residents to find out what exactly it is that they're looking at, but there's from day one, $100,000 in the budget every year for resident services, and that'll be something that we will receive.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. Mr. Penny and Mr. White, if you could just hold on while we talk about next steps before we adjourn. Oh, what are my, either capital A 1 or 2 is good for me. I think my role is to kind of facilitate a version of it that meets some of the needs that are being identified that we can introduce for participants. I think I think there is a path here for almost everybody on the board to get to a satisfactory place, but there are some real initial concerns, and kind of we will delve into them as part of the process of what's going to happen now. But I will say this, I do think that I am really happy that we did the work in the winter so that we can have this conversation and we don't have a shared language, better understanding what we've been accomplished, understanding of what the number is. It's sort of the disappointment immediately faded because of the work that we did. We knew we had some options, and maybe not always, not every single participant maybe is what we envisioned. And while you may not have been our first choice, I'm very optimistic that this partnership will end up being the right choice. With that said, I hope that Mr. Howard is ready to talk a little bit about our next steps. Let me give you my sense of sort of where we are at. The board at any point can take action to direct you to sell the property, etc. And so the question is, what power do you feel you need to be able to negotiate along the lines of some of the things that are important to us, the board, some of the things that are important to the board but involve external parties for prescriptive governance, involving the tenants, and some of the items involving communication with some other entities, like for example, making sure. If we wanted to contact HACA, just to check that box and have a sense of what Mr. Gerber would want. Or if he would even be open to the idea.
Well, I don't think we're going too far.
Well, I have the floor, so Mr. Gerber,
No, but we're at the point, we're gonna deal with the four that we have, or else, I'm not, gonna support it going to all of these other, options and, typically, I told you, no PNC.
Sure.
Once we sell it, it's up to them to, we put it in the contract.
So it's also a little having a conversation.
Well, you can help now.
You are out of order. And no action is needed. I think we all understand your position on the deal. And I was just talking about that. Let's try and avoid interruptions and relations if we have in the phone. So, Mr. Howard, what powers do you need us to formally grant you through any action in order to move forward towards the sale, assuming that you can make one of these options presented by Capital A and getting like that?
Well, in the interest of time, I guess I think I would, if the board feels more comfortable ratifying a proposal so that official activities can commence, then I would ask that maybe that happen in the next week and a half in order for us to all be able to, for all of those involved, I don't know that they are necessarily concerned that it be formal, but I guess it would be appropriate to have that in place. And then those components that you asked about, that it'd be a clear path for what that looks like and everyone feels okay with it. So I would say, if in fact, I probably only need about a week to do that. And if we could maybe have a special meeting to ratify what is, well, I guess I would propose something and then we would essentially say yes or no. And have that on the record.
Okay. So the resolution for action that you're looking for us to adopt in a week would be a resolution for negotiation.
Right, with the structure, with the specific structure that's a little more, that's a little very prescriptive, a little more prescriptive than some of the options that we presented, because we're a little bit, it's not nebulous, but I want to give you more certainty about what we're suggesting is going to be the case. So I would need to obviously work with the partners to ensure that they're all okay with what we're proposing.
An alternative, and I'm just floating it
Sure.
as a possibility, I'm saying just a possibility is, individual members could provide their feedback to the real estate committee. The real estate committee provides guidance in creating a resolution for sale, and we adopt that resolution for sale at our April meeting. And that way, we do not have a special meeting. You are getting very prescriptive collective feedback. And you can begin the work almost immediately of preparing the resolution for sale for April. I know it's in the weeds on procedural, but it's sort of a way of speeding up the clock.
Sure. Well, I think given the fact that the funding is secure, there's not a need to check, and I don't want to speak for our two entities that have to correct me if I'm wrong. There's no need for them to have something officially endorsed with the understanding that we're going to work collaboratively, then I think that would be fine. With me as far as that's concerned. And then if the due diligence can commence immediately, it doesn't change the construct of the, what's in the terms in terms of the agreement. So I think that was the only other concern I had with that. The due diligence, we don't want to delay that component of it. So if that, in fact, those things obviously can continue to move forward, then I think, yes, April would be fine for doing what you suggest.
So plan A would be, we have a special meeting in a week to grant you prescriptive powers for negotiation targeting an April sale. Plan B is the real estate committee gathers important items from the board in a public way, provides those to you to negotiate the resolution for sale in April. How do folks feel? A or B? Let's go. B. B. A being in your mind, that you don't make it. You want the special meeting.
Let's get it done. That's all. We keep dragging things out and, you know, you don't realize the cost. It's not, we'll be much more drained, especially since we didn't get it. I would like to also see the 36,750, we put in there because that's the best proposal. I think it's the best option of the ones that you limited us to.
Well, I think what you're saying, Mr. Robert, is you would like us to have a special meeting to sell in a week. And my concern is that the votes will not be there, so we will meet. and we'll
Well,
not-
if the votes aren't there, they're not there. We just move on. We keep the process. Okay, it's just as simple as that.
No,
You
I'm
know,
saying the votes will be there in a month, the votes will not be there.
How would they be there in a month if people know what they want to do?
Because people want to see that there's a negotiation, a restrictive covenant that we have had time with.
You do that in the contract.
All right, I think we have some discussion.
Mr. Howard, when you hear A and B, is there one that you find more flexible for you, more efficient, more?
No, I mean, I think, as I mentioned, the due diligence was a concern.
Yeah.
Obviously, and if there's no impeding of the timeline, I think it's just a matter of what people feel comfortable with. But I mean, rest assured, you'll be made aware of where we are, regardless of whether it's in a public meeting or in notes that I send out. I mean, but I'm okay either way.
Patrick, could I speak to the timeline just for clarification for the board if it's helpful? Our timeline?
Yes.
So the board, by all means, can run whatever process. We're happy to run ours concurrently. So if there's a special meeting that says we'd like to award the property to Hayden Glade, capital A, in this form or fashion, still to be fully negotiated in a purchase and sales contract. If there's a commitment from the board to move forward with us, we can start our physical diligence on an access agreement, which is we provide certificate of insurance, and we don't need to have a signed purchase and sales agreement before we start. I think our goal is to try and expedite this for the residents as much as possible. So that 30-day inspection period can commence shortly after the board decides to work with us. We still would need to go through the purchase and sales agreement, but that could be a bit of a drawn out process. If you wait until April to start, and then it could bleed on, and I don't want us to be the source of the delay. So we're ready at any time to the extent that that impacts the board's decision.
So I'm gonna ask if Chris may be able to weigh in on this, because what Elliot just suggested does change, clarifies a few things for me, but I think in light of what we did with Foundation, I wanna see if it's okay for him to share at this point.
Yeah, just briefly, there's a few different stages here. I think the purchase and sale agreement would be a contract obligating you to sell the property, assuming they successfully complete their due diligence and certain closing conditions are met, and that would happen. It sounds like a 30-day due diligence period followed by a 30-day closing period, I think it was, or whatever we agreed to. But I think Elliot's, I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name. I think he's exactly right, that you could do an access agreement with what we did for the previous group to let them kind of start doing the due diligence process to one, find out if there's just something that, so we don't waste our time if they find something immediately that they don't move forward with, but then also helping them get a head start, so maybe we don't need a full 30-day due diligence period once the contract's up.
The access agreement requires that the board is publicly posted.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The access agreement requires that this board act in a publicly posted way. We need a majority vote of the board to be able to negotiate the access agreement.
So
Yeah.
the agreement that we did with Foundation, because the board had made a decision to select them, we went on the premise of them already being selected. So they didn't go back to the board, but I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part and parcel with just general negotiation and kind of the spirit of it.
Well, what it's asking is, do we need to have a special meeting and move this forward with an access agreement? Or can I sign an access agreement and us get started and then ratify the sale.
So, let me just, I think, clarify where I think the board is at, not everybody, but in general. There is a sense that capital A and Native Blade are the right partnership. There needs to be time to negotiate and clarify some items. We want to do it as quickly as possible. And so we can either do a special meeting, but that adds a bunch of logistical burden that gets in the potential way of starting tomorrow, right? Or we can say, start doing the work, and the real bite of the apple, the one that we will digest, is a formal vote to sell in April, which is, in my sense, is faster. The body will probably be ready to sell, right? Some in one or two individuals on the board. So what I'm trying to get a sense of is, in order to do that fast version with the April sale, is a special meeting still necessary because it's the only one you can negotiate an access agreement?
I think you could negotiate an access easement in the meantime. I mean, I think some of these things don't necessarily rise to the level of board approval. I mean, you'll, I'm sure have folks on staff that, you know, there's contracts signed from time to time for, you know, more day-to-day stuff. And I think an access agreement is something you could probably go ahead and do without a special meeting. I think the purchase and sale agreement, decision to actually sell the property, is something that you need formal board approval to ratify that kind of thing.
Yes, so, you know, the access agreement doesn't have to be an access agreement presuming the sale. It can just be an access agreement. Right? And we're happy to get access under those terms. And then also as well, we would want to start more direct discussions as well immediately with the tenants during this period so that we're in general more prepared.
Or any objection from the body? The guidance that I would provide to our executive director is that we are interested in being ready for a going of sports sale to a partnership like the one discussed today that are able to work with. That all the antecedents to being able to do that should begin immediately so that we are in a position to do that. That I think will get us to action on moving this forward immediately. Give time for the negotiation when necessary to secure what I believe is the majority on this board, as well as to explore potential alternatives informally. And it gets us very quickly to a place where we have the right choice, taking over the building and us. So if there's no objection, that's the guidance that I'm providing as sort of the rough consensus of the board. We will be looking for the resolution for action, formal resolution for action, the actual sale for April. So that's a very quick pivot, given that I just heard about this last week, and that there is a lot that needs to be. For further discussion, I think we are ready to adjourn. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Ms. Reams. All those in favor? Aye.